Okay, guys, first of all, Spadia is not just a YouTube channel. We have also digital products, physical products, which are going to help you about everything we talk about in these videos. You can find two links in the descriptions below. And now let's get back to the video you came here to actually watch.
Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we are going to be discussing about your day and night cycle and how you can improve that with some of the tools that we will be going over today. And this is especially a video dedicated to you guys who either might be having issues with sleeping or want to also improve your focus at work and maybe I would say your motivation levels as well, because all of these tools are so profound. Obviously, if it's just coming from me, it may sound arrogant, but many of these tools are just basic tools and principles that are there for us to use them to basically have higher focus, higher work output, and you can use it in any other way you want. It's not just necessarily related to work. It helps you to feel better about yourself as well, to have elevated mood, and it has a lot of different principles. This is why these are basically tools which you can do on a consistent basis, but also they help you, at least some of them, on a once a time basis, maybe once per 2 days or 3 days, especially the last two that we will be talking about today. Now, why is it even first important to optimize your day and night cycle, you might ask? Because obviously we might be saying that, well, sleep is there just for us to sleep, but it's pretty much the most important function that we have in ourselves. One thing I'll mention is that, for example, biologically, it makes no sense for us to basically sleep because it's quite a vulnerable state where, for example, I think it's average of 7.5 to 8 hours might be the average of time people sleep, or even 7 hours, and during that you are basically unconscious and you can't even, for example, defend yourself. So sleep has been something that we basically evolved to have necessity for us to be able to actually live and evolve further. So basically sleep is something that, despite the fact how dangerous it is, it's very important to get it right and to have this cycle of what you do during the day and also how you approach the night and to have it set up correctly. I think this speaks to the importance of that, but I think there is much more to it as well. But this is why it's important to actually have this tool set up for yourself to be able to use whatever you have at hand to improve both of those cycles of day and night for yourself. Now, I've prepared basically a list which I'll go over when I will look at my phone as well, to go through some of the most important, or let's say from basically starting in the morning. For some of those, we've already talked about them on the channel, and to a more extensive points, because many of these tools do need their own separate videos to explain them fully. But this is basically a way how you can approach it in the most concise way, and you don't have to, for example, ingest hours of content if you're just looking for one specific video on that hand. Now, I will start off with the first thing about your chemicals or also hormones in your body. And this is something we've talked about for quite a bit, about cortisol, which is basically called the stress hormone. But the notion about cortisol, thankfully, it has changed over the last couple of years. But it's been thought about as basically a chemical which you don't want to have that much because it's related to stress. But the way it actually works is that if you are able to have a huge spike of cortisol in a given time of the day, it helps your system to buffer against these smaller spikes of cortisol and even against, for example, chronic stress as well. So if you are able to have this big mountain or a big peak of cortisol, your body for the given day or even for the next couple of days following that is able to be better prepared for example, stress from work. Basically, any, let's say, less stress that might come to you, and you are be able to deal much better with situations, basically anywhere, social situations as well. If something stresses you out, public speaking for many people, and it's just a huge thing to get it right. And now the way you can do that is actually very simple, but I think especially over the last 3 years with the whole basically COVID we've had, especially with that, but also with the more of the lifestyles of people who are basically more inside, for example. So this is the thing that you especially want to focus on in the morning. And the way you can increase your cortisol, I would say, are three main things, but we'll go from the first most important, and that is the viewing of any sunlight in the morning, which helps you not just to elevate cortisol, but it sets a lot of things in your system that will be basically unnecessary to be working for you. If you stay inside, you often feel more sluggish, your mood is also down, but if you're able to see the sunlight or be on the sun immediately in the morning, it helps a lot. And especially we are talking about right now is that it elevates your cortisol, I believe, to the highest level out of these tools which we will be talking about now, and that buffers you against quite a lot of stress you might encounter into the rest of the day. And in terms of how profound it is, I think it's especially you can feel it also comparing winter to summer, when you live in countries where you have this alternate cold winter and sunny summer seasons. If you have sun for just a couple of days or a month or two in the year, it may not be that profound for you, but I think you also notice the difference that in general your mood is much better during the summer when you are able to see the sun. And also in terms of stress on the given days, there are many studies which show that having this higher spike of cortisol in the morning, especially thanks mainly to sunlight, helps you a lot to buffer against stress from, for example, your work, or I've mentioned social situations as well. So this is very important to get it right in the morning. And to be quite fair, I had never heard this advice. We've talked about it on this channel, but if you literally can't walk outside for some reason for this 15 minutes to 30 minutes, if there is very dim sunlight, you might want to do it for a bit longer. If you can do it, at least fully open your windows when you are inside and you will be getting those sun rays. It doesn't work if you have your windows closed, so you can even feel yourself that you just feel differently when you have sun out, when you have your windows closed, or when basically the photons are basically going onto not through windows, but when you have them opened. So this is a huge thing to basically done and in the morning, because that, as I will go through, also set up your whole day, which is very important to do in the morning. And this is also why things like exercise, which also spike your cortisol, especially with powerlifting and weightlifting, where it's basically a stress on your system. You're basically stressing your muscles, your nerve cells, and everything that is basically being worked on during the particular lifts. In that case, it's also a form of stress to your body, and this is also why that is pretty much from this point of view best done in the morning. But if you literally don't have time for it in the morning for any reason, you might have family obligations, social obligations, events, anything, then evening is also I would say, the best case in scenario to have the exercise. So it's better to have some than none, for also many other health benefits, which definitely deserve a separate video on that. And then the last third thing out of the spike your cortisol, let's say, tool is also cold showers, or let's say cold exposure at least. But I don't think that many of us have cryo chambers at home or anything of that sort, although there are actually many households which are getting one apparently. So this may be something more widespread, but cold itself spikes both your adrenaline and cortisol, and you also get this longer lasting increase of dopamine, which is a slow increase, which makes you feel better over the next couple of hours. It may also be throughout the entirety of the day, but also from my own experience, I think at least for a couple of hours after that, you're just basically much more focused on everything you do. It seems that really that spike of those particular chemicals is very, very important for your own body to basically get your focus back. And if you feel bad doing that, will set you straight immediately for a couple of hours at least, and it works immediately. I think it's also something about the fact that you are actually able to do something which many people struggle with. So there is something of a bit of an ego boost with cold exposure and cold showers, in my opinion. But I think that this increase of cortisol and adrenaline and this let's say slower increasing spikes of dopamine are very, very important for you to be able to actually focus on work and, for example, fitness as well. I do believe that with all of these three, let's say, inside the tools, they help you to also not be able to be easily distracted, for example. So I do believe that you will use less mobile devices, for example, during your fitness bouts, because you're just much more inclined to actually focus on what you're doing at the moment, and that again feeds into itself to have better lifts, better workouts, and even higher benefits of all of those three things which I've mentioned. It's very, very important for the morning. I mean, in terms of importance out of those three, I would say sunlight exposure is the most important, but of course, when it's winter, for example, it's very, very important to get your fitness and also the cold exposure. It's even more important than, in my opinion, than during the summer, but I think doing all three of those in the morning, pretty much a killer combo. And if you are able to do that, if you haven't done those and you start to incorporate them one by one, for example, over the course of next 3 or 6 months, it's that simple. If it benefits you for 30, 40, 50 years and you're able to implement it in 3 to 6 months, I think that's a huge payoff. You will see a tremendous difference in terms of how you feel and how you act and how you perform pretty much with everything. So just if you haven't tried that, you can just literally give yourself a healthier time frame, as we also talked about in our plan video, that you might want to focus on, let's say, 3 things and have a direct plan for them for, let's say, a couple of months, even up to a year. So this is something that you don't have to do in just 1 day or 2 days and then, for example, fail the 3rd day to do the cold exposure and then think it's over. I think it's very easy to think about this in a couple of months time frame to basically set it up to benefit from it hugely for decades, which is absolutely huge. And for those who are older, getting the best out of your years with these 3 things is also very important. And also, I was just to mention that basically going from hot showers, for example, to very, very cold ones can be also very dangerous on that hand, so also be mindful. And if you are unsure, make sure that you basically have not too cold of a shower, but you can also gradually bring it down as you do more and more of it to basically get your body prepared for that. And what I mean is that, for example, for first week, you may be doing higher temperatures and then basic next few weeks gradually bring that down for you. So this is very, very important to mention, but all of these 3 tools will basically help you to focus on your work performance and also better optimize your sleep cycle, because as we will go into the next tool, which is mostly related to your diet, and what I will mention here is that how your diet is set up and also when you eat food is very, very important, because of one fact mainly, or this major factor, is that your body or your cells in your body, because of course we are made of cells, are running on around 24-hour clocks. This is mostly because, of course, we've evolved due to Earth's rotation for basically having 24-hour days. And your body and mind, so basically the whole system, is trying to predict reliably what you're about to do. So there's been many studies, which we also might link in the description below, which show that, for example, your mind and body is trying to average out the times from, I'm not sure exactly if it's the last couple of days or let's say 2 or 3 weeks. I may have to recheck that. It's trying, based on that, when you went to sleep, it's trying to make an average of that time. And that basically makes it then to act in a way to predict when you'll go to sleep in the next few days, which is related to having some chemicals spike up, to have basically some chemicals which predict that you're about to sleep to pop up in, let's say, a couple of hours before you actually go to sleep. And your body basically prepares for a sleep based on the average of that time. So if you have very irregular sleep schedule, if you go to sleep at very irregular times, one is that there is no system, and I do believe that your mind especially loves systems. It loves when everything is set up in a way that you follow each day, that you don't deviate from too much, that it is able to predict what you're about to do. Because for example, many of the motions that you do, for example, opening up your laptop, going to your car, after you do it for many, many days, even years, your body basically makes you to do it so automatically, and it doesn't even engage. It basically is no neural capacity in that as much as ever before. So it's basically automatic. So your body loves systems, which basically just means that it's able to use less calories or less energy for you to do these particular activities. And this is why having consistent times both for sleeping, for eating, and also I believe what you eat is important, because your body is trying to predict the response and the things it has to do to, for example, digest your food, and also when it digests your food. It's also been studies which had shown that if you have this consistent meal prep times, for example, that it already tries to increase your insulin levels even before you eat on that particular hour, even despite you haven't even indicated to yourself that you're going to eat. But since it knows, for example, your mind that you eat every morning your breakfast at 8 a.m., if you have done, for example, a study on yourself, or let's say a blood test as well, you will have noticed that even despite the fact that you have not eaten anything yet, your body has already started to increase your insulin even before ingesting any kind of food, if you're able to basically follow this consistency in pattern. And this is not bad, because it basically means that your body is trying to optimize your chemical levels, your also I believe hormone levels around the things you do, and it's trying to predict the best, so it doesn't have to all of a sudden do things which basically cost a lot of energy on that hand, and it helps your body to and mind to use basically less energy for the things that you would otherwise have to use it a lot for. Now, in terms of what you want to eat, well, I say well because this is something which is a high point of contention, and diet is, I think, the most hotly debated topic, or one of the most hotly debated topic, and increasingly so on the internet for that. And here's the one thing that you would like to probably know, and I think already known, but quite a long time. But in terms of eating foods that contain, for example, sugar, or these highly processed foods which don't have a lot of nutrients in, it's very tough to eat them in the morning and not feel sluggish throughout the rest of the day, and you can just see it on yourself. If you are eating, on the other hand, foods which help you to get nutrients in your body, you not only alter what you ate, but you also alter your behavior and your work and your output in the gym. So it's very important to make sure that you, for example, if you want to actually do well in the given day, to be focusing on things like getting sufficient meat into your body. Of course, there is also this whole thing of eating a carnivore diet or being vegan, but both of those diets seem to actually work because they actually do contain nutrients in them. And also from the many things that if you want to, for example, focus on proteins and gym output, I think it's much easier to do it in that case with meat and with vegetables. On the other hand, if you, for example, struggle with eating a lot, I think they help you, especially due to their lower calorie content, to basically switch to that diet or to do both. But especially sugary foods, more processed foods, which we might say, for example, pizzas and kebabs, they also contain sauces, for example, which are quite high in calories on that hand, with a lot of salt usually as well. And those tend you to feel more sluggish. You also tend to get additional accessories with them, for example, sodas, so in the case of Cokes and similar beverages on that hand, which just make you feel worse, especially if you eat them, for example, on your lunch or even in the morning as well. So this is very important to actually get your diet straight and to eat one at the similar times, but also to have your own diet set up, because this is again a system which you can set up for yourself, so you don't have to particularly think about what you're going to eat in the morning, but you have basically a system of things that you eat on a daily basis. So this is a huge tool to save you your real estate in your mind, so you don't have to think about it, to be able to focus on something else. But on the other hand, to also not be susceptible to eating more, let's say, sugary foods, or say comfort foods as well, I would call them, which make you feel more sluggish. And it's also very important to get that straight, because seems to be quite a clear correlation between the fact of what you eat also affects basically how much work you're able to do and how much you're willing to do that work. Because feeling sluggish after, for example, one pizza is just completely normal, and we tend to do a lot less after ingesting that food. So this is very, very important to actually get straight, because first it affects your entire day, but since it affects your entire day and also your sleep, basically what you eat, it may just not affect your entire day, but also the next day, and maybe even next to you if you happen to have actually bad sleep, because we know how that actually can affect us in the next few days. And if that happens often, you can see how it may affect your life, your work, your career, for example. This is very important to actually get straight, and it is harder, but usually things that are harder to do are also the most worthwhile things to do. So if you get your diet straight, I always do say that diets high in fats are very, very important. For example, I would be a big advocate of peanut butter as well, or you can even do things like steaks, which are quite nutritious on their own sense. So it is just basically a thing you can try and mix together, and also make sure that the diet you would follow, you can actually do it consistently, and you're actually able to follow it out the bone. Because if you make your diet in a way that you would have to cook every day for 3 hours, that is not plausible, and also based on your budget. But I think everything is at any budget possible, and you can do that as well. Now then, the third thing would be also the NSDR, which I would say is a protocol of which used to be called Yoga Nidra as well. and this was a way that you could have actually reduced your stress in the past. And it basically works on a way that you would reduce your stress if you listen to it, but it also seems to increase your dopamine levels, not in ways to actually spike it, but it helps you to gradually increase it, of course, over the next couple of hours, and it also helps to replenish it, which is pretty much huge for you, because you can replenish your dopamine levels, for example, if you worked out too long, if you don't feel good after a particular gym session, for example, as well. So this acts on many different levels, and for example, if you work for, let's say, 8 to 9 hours, you can basically use that system, or use that, let's say, a guided voice recording. I would say it's not necessarily a meditation on the other hand, but you can use that to basically be able to get more work done throughout the rest of the day and into the evening as well. This is something you can check out. It basically is kind of a bonus in this recording as well. It takes maybe about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even up to half an hour if you want to push it, but it's quite fast. And if you need some help with the replenishment of your motivation levels, I think this is a huge thing you can do. So basically all of those tools just are huge, guys. So if you're able to do that, if you're able to use any one of them over the next couple of months to implement them if you need them, that will be huge. So thanks.